Young Voices. This is a 24-hour conversations about the future, intergenerational, around the world. We were in Barcelona just a minute ago, and now we are going to talk about quantum computing and quantum's futures, and I'm really curious about this session. Um, we are going to have Scott Jordan as the adult facilitator, and then we will have also Sadia Sakib as the youth facilitator. I will post some information in the chat so you can learn more about that. But please, Scott, the floor is yours.
Excellent.
Scott
Thank you so
and
much.
Sadia.
Thank you. Thank you all. I guess we're at the 1/4 mark of our day. It's been really fun so far, and we've heard from some really phenomenal groups. And we now have one more fantastic emerging futurist before us. I have come down with a bit of a cold, so I'm a bit nasally today, and I will talk as little as I possibly can because A, I'm too old, so I don't really know anything about quantum computing. And B, this is all about Sadia Sadiq. So Sadia, if you're ready, I'll let you go ahead and begin. Just as words for everyone else, I think we're also simultaneously streaming on YouTube if you want to catch up with this later. And if you have any questions, just feel free to put them in the chat. I'll kind of take note, and at the end, we'll have a nice little Q&A discussion if we can. So with that, I'll give it to Sadia.
Hi, everyone. Let me just share my screen. Sorry. Okay, so today we'll be talking about quantum computing and quantum cryptography. So it's such a pleasure to be having everyone join us here today. The presentations today have been amazing, can I just say? I want to dive into the realm of quantum cryptography and how it could shape our future going forward. I do apologize, and I want to warn you, some words may seem scary and a bit intimidating, but don't worry, I'll get to all of that in a minute. Um, Now, as we explore the potential of quantum cryptography, we'll delve into topics like its key principles, the ethical considerations surrounding its development, and the far-reaching impacts that it might hold for global society. So, what is encryption? I want to ask the audience first. How many of you have heard of the word encryption? Yes. How many of you know what it means? Would you like to put your answers in the chat, maybe? We can have a bit of an interactive session. Oh, wait a minute. We have a few answers, key, passwords, scrambling the data. Yeah, those are pretty close. The the dictionary definition of encryption would be, securing our data. The dictionary definition, sorry, is the process of converting information or data into a code, especially to prevent unauthorized access. How many people here know why that's important? And if you could type your answers in the chat, that'd be cool. Yeah, safeguarding information, evil scammers. Yep, those are all pretty accurate. Privacy and avoid scamming. Big pro. Okay. Um, yeah, that's pretty accurate. So at its core, we can say that encryption is like turning data into a code that only someone with the right key can understand. So it's like a way of keeping information safe from prying eyes by making it unreadable unless you have a unique, one-of-a-kind key to unlock it. So as an example, we'll talk about Mr. Jordan. If I send an email to him, and I don't want anyone seeing the contents of that email, I wouldn't want anyone seeing the contents of any of my emails because that would just, it's private stuff. That is then put through an encryption algorithm and protocol called the SSL TLS. We don't really have to know what that is. It's just a protocol kept to encrypt your data while emails are being sent. So only Mr. Jordan is able to view that email because he's the only directed recipient. You might have heard the word IP or IP addresses being thrown around. Mr. Jordan has his own unique IP address, so the email is only directed to that, so the encryption protocol works based off of that. It sounds great in theory, but in practice it fails a lot. And it our data is a lot more sensitive now than it is than ever before because we have powerful computers, we have supercomputers that are able to crack these codes, like the RSA algorithm. Some of you might have heard about that. Uses large prime factors to combine into one number, and that's how we encrypt our emails, and text and web browsing, whatever. It's not really secure because a powerful supercomputer can crack that in a second. We have a chat. Never mind. So yeah, these encryption algorithms are outdated. Your data is vulnerable and, it's not really best in practice. So let's talk about quantum cryptography a bit. How many of you have heard of the word quantum physics, quantum mechanics, quantum cryptography, or quantum computing before this presentation? Okay, we have a few people. Cool, good to know that people are still in the loop with how things are going. This is a not so easy fix to this encryption problem that we have now, and it introduces loads of great solutions to this problem that we have with hackers and scammers, like some of you said, to protect our data, protect our information. It's secure. Classical computers are unable to break it. It's very speedy. And it uses the laws of quantum mechanics, which would exponentially increase the processing power for certain algorithms. Now, the RSA that I talked about earlier becomes way more secure because quantum computers are able to use much larger numbers to combine into one number to encrypt our information. So there are key concepts I will have to explain before we get into it, just so everyone can understand a bit better what I'm talking about, so I don't sound crazy. So quantum superposition might have been something that you might have heard being thrown about. It's like tiny particles, say electrons or photons, which are light particles, that can be in many places or states at the same time. It sounds confusing, but when we get to an atomic level and an atomic scale, these things make a lot of sense because gravity stops affecting them. So it's like if I have a coin spinning, you guys can try it out if you want. If you have a spinning coin or if you flip a coin, you're not really able to deduce whether or not that coin is a head or a tail. You can only find out until you look at it. So the principles of quantum superposition are saying that those tiny particles have a proper particle property called angular momentum or spin. It's not really spinning, but for the sake of simplicity, we'll say it's spinning. I have an electron and it can either have a spin up or spin down, but until I observe it, it is doing both at the same time. So maybe that might help explain. If you have any questions, do ask away. Will quantum computing replace the cloud? I will explain everything in a minute. So, quantum entanglement. Yes, sorry. Quantum entanglement is when you have two of those tiny particles that I was talking about that become linked, essentially. There are many ways that this can be done. For example, you can cool two particles so that they're super, super cold and they essentially just link. Sometimes they just come linked. It's really weird when we get to that level, where we're looking at very, very small particles. So it's, yeah, you link these two particles together and one being observed, like I spoke earlier, will immediately affect the other. So say they're in opposite superposition. I have an electron here and I have an electron here. And this one, they're both in superposition. They're both in an undecided state. If I observe and measure one as a spin up, I observe it and the result is spin up. That information will travel instantaneously faster than the speed of light to the other one, and the other one will be spinning down. So it's like a pair of magical dice where the outcome of one die is always connected to the outcome of the other. They're dependent on each other's outcomes. So now let's get into quantum bits. In a classical computer, you might have heard the word bit, and you might have seen in movies and stuff where you have one and zeros. A classical computer has bits that can store numbers that are a 1 or a 0. That's it. That's what one bit can store. But quantum bits or qubits have the ability to store a 1, a 0, or both at the same time. So you might be able to imagine that it allows those computers to be super powerful and explore so many different possibilities at the same time, so much faster than regular computers. It is fascinating. Um, Now I have a game I would like to play. I'll play by myself first, and then I'll play it two more times so someone else can join. Sorry, it was a game I already had been playing. Um, so this hopefully will help you understand or might confuse you more about the principles of entanglement and superposition. So we have in a normal game of tic-tac-toe X's and Y's. Over here we can have X's and Y's in one box in superposition. I'll help explain while I start the game. So I have an X here, I put an X here, and I have decided there's two X's that I can place since it's in superposition. I'll place an X here. This is X1. Both of these are X1 and they're in superposition. Now it's player Y's turn. So I'm gonna put in let's say I'll put a Y here and I'll put a Y here. This has created a loop of entanglement because these Ys are interfering with the superposition of these two. And now they need to decide a state. So you wouldn't be able to choose this in the real world, but now I'm able to choose where I want to put my X and where I want to put my Y. So if I click here, I'll put an X here. And then that will automatically decide that Y will be here because they're in opposite states of superposition. Then I'll decide to put an X here and another one here maybe. I'll put a Y here and I'll put another Y here because player Y wants to go across the board. Player X would want to go here maybe to intercept and here. Y will choose to go here and here. This has created another loop of entanglement. With this, player Y can now choose where they would want to put their Ys, and there you go, Y wins the game. Now, there's a link here if you guys want to, I'll try and paste it in the chat. Sorry. Copy. I'll put it in the chat. So two systems exist but not replaced. Oh, wait. I'm confused at the question. Paste it here to everyone. Sorry, I've got like a MacBook in front of me. I can't really see very well. There we go. That's in the chat there if anyone wants to play with me. I'll just wait a few seconds. If you have already joined, by the way, you would be player X, so you'd have to make your move now, and then I'll make my move second.
How do you make the move? Because I'm trying to click, but nothing happens.
You can just click on a tile. It should input.
I will try, but
It's not working for me either, Sadia.
Oh, that's a shame. I'm not sure why that's not working. I have another game here. We'll try this one. If it doesn't work, I'll be a bit sad. I don't know if it's sent. Yeah, there we go. Yeah, that slashes is there. Sorry. It should hopefully work now.
no, it's not working.
Oh dear, that's such a shame.
Yeah.
I think, yeah.
We are not prepared to work with quantum. You are, but we are not.
Either way, the principles of this game, just to reiterate, are that these particles, like, if I put it, let me, let me try playing it by myself again, just to reiterate. So again, this X is in superposition. So it is in both states at the same time. This Y comes in, it disrupts that superposition. This X is observed, and so is this one. So they decide we need to decide on what states we are. So again, that is how it would work. It's a shame it's not working. That is really sad. I was so excited, but oh well. Um, so moving on to the next slide. We have quantum key distribution. It sounds crazy, but it's a pretty simple concept to understand. So we have Werner Heisenberg, who came up with the uncertainty principle, which we will talk about in a bit. So quantum key distribution operates on superposition and entanglement. So say I have Alice and Bob, and Alice is trying to send information to Bob through a quantum communication channel. The qubits that Alice is sending Bob can exist in multiple states because of superposition. Now, Bob will receive these qubits and measure them using whatever quantum measurement apparatus he has. And the act of measuring it, as we said, would collapse the state of the qubit. So the qubit is then observed as being either, like, let's take the spin example again, spin up or spin down. If Bob is observing the electron or qubit as spin up, then Alice would be observing it as spin down. Now, say you have an eavesdropper that is trying to break the communication channel. Let's call her Eve. So Eve is trying to intercept this communication channel, and the reason that Alice and Bob are able to basically know when Eve is trying to break the channel or not. This is because of Heisenberg's uncertainty principle. So he said that when you have a quantum particle, you cannot know both its position and momentum at the same time. Eve is trying to know both. So she cannot know that. And as a result, the quantum entanglement and the communication channel is broken. And Bob and Alice can then say that, oh, wait, that's weird. My qubit is saying spin up, but your qubit is also saying spin up. So what happened? And then later, they would understand that there has been an eavesdropping attempt. So they could communicate over classical channel like text and talk about their measured qubits that they both believe would have been entangled but weren't. And if the check is successful, they can discard those qubits that weren't entangled and use the remaining bits as a shared secret key. Now, as with any research field, there are challenges and limitations to quantum computing, quantum cryptography. Quantum states are very fragile. External influences like temperature or electromagnetic fields could really mess up the way qubits function. We call these external influences quantum noise. Now, the superposition of these states may break down while they're interacting, and that could disrupt the transfer of information. They can also entangle with the environment at random times, which could introduce uncertainties and disturbances. Now, we have a new field that's blooming called quantum error correction. And this is a field where researchers and scientists are trying to get rid of this noise, like removing temperature constraints and electromagnetic fields, etc. Another issue is that it's really complicated and really costly. Quantum computers need to be cooled to an unhealthy extent. Like they demand a lot. They're asking for 0 Kelvin, and in Celsius terms, that is minus 273 Celsius. That is practically unachievable on Earth with the resources that we have. Google has done an impressive 0.372 Kelvin, I think, for their computers, but yeah, it is quite complicated and costly. Also, sometimes you need to separate computers from different environments, so you have to start up new facilities, have them completely isolated from these influences. So it's quite a lot of work and money. We also need new protocols. So as you might have guessed, classical computers are not safe from quantum attacks. Those quantum computers, if a classical supercomputer is able to break classical encryption, then imagine what a quantum computer would do and how fast it would do it. We're trying to develop new protocols known as quantum safe protocols for classical systems, so that those systems, like your phone or your computer, are safe from quantum attacks. Also, we are looking towards building multi-party protocols. So it's not just two people that are able to interact, it's multiple people at the same time. It is really hard also to integrate quantum systems with classical systems, mainly because they operate on two completely different planes with different systems. And we need to be able to use this advanced sort of cryptography in normal systems so that our day-to-day emails, as I was saying, or text messages and financial transactions are safe. And bridging the gap between these quantum logic gates and classical computing logic gates is very difficult. But nevertheless, we have some crazy people, like avid researchers, that are continuing to work on this to make sure this quantum cryptography is working at its full potential, and creating a more safe cyberspace for everyone. This picture, by the way, I would like to just talk about it for a second. This is the very first picture that was taken of quantum entanglement with photons. I don't remember how long ago it was, but it was definitely a big feat with quantum computing. So, present day uses of quantum computing, you might be thinking, oh, we're quite far from achieving anything. But if you look at Moore's law, which is a law that explains that computers and technology get exponentially better over time, you will see that there is not actually that long to go, and we're already implementing quantum technologies in our day-to-day lives. So, President Biden signed the Quantum Computing and Cryptography Preparedness Act in December of 2022, which addresses the migration of executive agencies' IT systems to post-quantum cryptography. On top of that, we have already banks like Goldman Sachs and JP Morgan using quantum computers to simulate probabilities, to simulate risk analysis, and portfolio optimization. So they're doing quite a bit. They also have recently assembled full teams dedicated to quantum computing for statistical simulations, etc. Also, this one I was quite excited about. Long distance communication is possible, and that has been discovered by Quest in China. They made a satellite that has successfully demonstrated the distribution of entangled photons, which, as I said, are light particles, in pairs over large distances. So entangled particles were sent from the satellite to ground stations, and they were communicating that way, which kind of proved that we are able to use that entanglement and information transmission from a large distance. These successful experiments represent obviously a large step towards the development of global quantum communication networks. These could secure information transfer from one part of the globe to the other, which is marvelous, I think. Also, traffic management. It might come as a shock to some of you, but quantum computers are actually used for traffic management. Companies like D-Wave Systems worked with Volkswagen to make quantum annealers to solve traffic optimization problems. So we have this thing called quantum annealing. And in the context of optimization, it's to search for as many possible combinations to find a solution that requires the least energy and least time. So in Beijing, they used it to optimize the traffic flow of public transportation systems with quantum computers. So that was pretty cool. Quantum sensing as well. This is a really interesting one. We are now making quantum diamond microscopes that exploit the nitrogen vacancies inside diamonds to make imaging and sensing really precise. So they're able to detect temperature changes or electromagnetic changes as bad as it is that quantum computers are so sensitive to these things, it is really helpful when we're trying to look for things that require precision and accuracy. They can also manipulate individual quantum states, so it's really helpful towards research, and it will hopefully be used in the healthcare field soon as well. Global and future impact of quantum research, which is why we are all here today. So as a result of it being so powerful and so secure, obviously there is a huge advantage in cybersecurity. Also, there have been advances in healthcare and drug development. So, how many of you have heard of quantum genome sequencing? You have? Okay, good to know. Well, basically, these quantum algorithms are able to analyze large data sets really efficiently, which can lead to faster identification of genetic patterns and potential disease markers. So they're able to sequence genome and DNA in every single possible way to try and find genetic diseases that might come up in the future. And this would revolutionize personalized medicine, which allow more targeted and effective treatments based on someone's genetic makeup, which is great. We're working on it currently. I've heard a lot going on with that. Also, it will improve AI capabilities. I know people now are like, oh, AI, it's going to take over the world, which is a rational fear. But QML, or quantum machine learning, uses obviously quantum computing and abnormal machine learning to be able to calculate huge numbers, solve complex problems, and analyze large data sets to speed up certain machine learning tasks. They can enhance the capabilities of AI systems and machine learning in that sense that computers are able to learn more effectively. Also, we're able to use quantum computers to discover new materials. So these computers have the capability to simulate and analyze the behavior of molecules and materials at the quantum level, which using regular computers and regular equipment, we are not able to do. Since these computers already run at such a tiny scale, although by the way, if you look at the picture on the right, it doesn't look like that. Those things are huge, but the actual qubits inside those are very, very small. They're like an atom, or even smaller than an atom, size. And they're able to simulate molecular interactions, and we can find new materials to develop advanced particles or molecules to use in electronics, energy storage, and other fields, which could, open up a lot of possibilities for especially things that we thought were impractical to explore. So I think that's nice. There are a lot of ethical considerations. I'm sure this has been a question on everyone's mind. Since they demand so much energy, so much power, so many resources, the question arises, is this doing more harm than good? So, in terms of the environment, they are super energy demanding. Like they need a lot of energy all the time. They need the coolers to be powered to max. They demand like large scale quantum computing facilities, and that could really contribute to environmental concerns. Also, a lot of computers that we're looking at recently, the newer ones that are being developed, require a lot of rare earth elements and materials which have a lot of environmental consequences. So it's impertinent that we have to be responsible while sourcing and disposing these materials to minimize environmental impact. Also, another fear that a lot of people might have, which again is rational, is that once these computers are commercialized, and once the average Joe has access to a quantum computer, which might take a while, but once these computers are available to the public, they could very well be used for malicious purposes, such as hacking into financial systems, taking control over your data, finding out where you live. It is really scary. But thank God that they're still kept private. Uh, um, they again are able to break conventional cryptographic methods. Um, so c data isn't compromised. Data is compromised and unauthorized access, identity theft, financial fraud are very probable things. IBM has actually released a few of their computers to the public to use for research purposes. Obviously, your programs and stuff would have to be checked before they're used on the computer. But yep, it is scary. There's an ethical dilemma based on funding. So what, like, the question arises, is this really what we should be spending our money on? There are people dying. There's issues with healthcare and education. Do we really need to be spending money on quantum computing? And obviously, this is an opportunity cost that every government will face in every sector. And I think it's a shame that this is an issue because there are much bigger issues out there that we should be spending money on. But I think this is one that will really help um, mitigate those issues in the future. Um, so it obviously will require large financial investments, um, and poverty, healthcare, education, as I said, will also demand attention. Striking a balance between advancing technology and addressing immediate societal needs is a very complex ethical dilemma. Um, Also, the cyber arms race. So there's a lot of global competition, especially with governments. I don't know if you guys know about the space race. Does anyone know about the space race? Yep. So the development of these quantum technologies lead to a lot of global competition. So you can say it's similar to a cyber arms race where nations want to be the first to do stuff. There's a concept that we call quantum supremacy. It's when a quantum computer is superior to a classical supercomputer, when we reach that point. And every country just wants to get furthest, which I understand, but it causes a lot of problems like cyber conflicts, um, countries that would be able to sabotage other people's progress, in order to get there first. So there's a lot of issues with that. Now we have a Q&A session with Scott.
Excellent. Well, thank you very much, Sadia. That was a fantastic presentation. You did a very good job of breaking down something that I think is a little frightening for some folks, as it's kind of gets a bit heady and very technical. I just wanted to start with before we kind of get into the big questions, I want to start with you personally. What got you interested in something like this? It doesn't feel like what people your age would just be normally into, you know? So I just give us a little background about your own story.
Um, n- okay, so it started ever since I was a kid. I've always really been super curious. Like I've always wanted to know everything. I've always asked a bunch of questions like why? Um, and I guess that propelled me into looking into physics, primarily astrophysics, was an interest of mine. Um, and going down a YouTube rabbit hole all the time, trying to look into, you know, what's this, what's that, quantum particles, etc. This is so weird. And my physics teacher at school, actually, um, I was speaking to her about it, and I liked computer science as well at the time. I would always be opening up machines, um, trying to fix computer problems. I would be the computer person of the house. So I think after speaking to my teacher this one random Wednesday, she said, "You know, Sadia, I think there's this field that might interest you." And I said, "Well, miss, what? Tell me." And she said quantum computing, and I'd never heard about it before. And I think that's what kind of started this whole thing. So,
Uh,
yeah.
oh, Sadia, real quick, could you stop screen sharing? That way
Yeah,
we
of
can all
course.
see
Of
each other.
course.
And then, yeah. So, did you please continue though? Was there any other thoughts about that, or what have you been? What's kept you kind of going into all of this? It's you have a great deal of knowledge, and so I feel like that they're yeah. What's the drive
What's
behind?
the drive? Like I
Yeah,
said, curiosity. It has to be curiosity. Like I thought that nature would go as I matured and grew older, but no, some things never change. I remember
fantastic.
you also asked, is this something that people your age would usually be into? I
Huh?
think people my age that are interested in stuff like this have their own little niche. Like some people could be into AI, for example. Some people could be really into different like kinds of medicine or medical fields. So it is everyone has their own niche, but I don't think I've heard I do have a few friends on LinkedIn around my age that, you know, would be able to relate to me in terms of quantum computing, but otherwise, no, not really. It's not very common.
Very good, excellent. Well, I'll open it up. If anyone has any questions, please feel free to unmute, or you could type in your chat if you didn't want to show. I know, Bazir, you had some questions early on about the cloud and quantum computing. If you wanted to elucidate that a bit further, or Sadia, if you had any further comments you wanted to make on that.
No, not necessarily. I'm open to questions.
Okay.
Hi, Sadia. Awesome presentation and such enthusiasm, motivation, and I wish you all the best because we need enthusiastic scientists like you in STEM. So my question is, cloud computing was always delivered as a great promise. It was going to be so much good. It's unbreakable and this and that. And my criticism was faced with hostility. But that being said, is quantum computing going to replace somehow the cloud computing? So instead of the cloud system, that there's going to be an even more super powerful quantum systems? And I guess my second question would be, uh, perhaps, NATO is always sharing the cost on certain developments and burden sharing, cost sharing, not just the cost sharing, but the burden sharing as well. So do you think that would serve as model, perhaps just in scientific and medical community? Thank you very much.
Sorry, could you repeat your second question again?
Um, my second question focuses on basically how do you get partnerships through burden sharing and responsibility sharing, and perhaps just in climate change or major medical emergencies. So how do you see that play in quantum computing?
Okay, so in response to your first question, is quantum computing the new cloud computing? I think that's a very interesting question. We do have a field. I don't think you'd be surprised. There's like a quantum field for everything. Like you have quantum computing, and there's 20 different branches off of that. There is quantum cloud computing. That is a real thing. Will it take over the cloud? I'm not sure how we would do that. I think that quantum encryption and quantum networks we could, I think it could be useful to secure the cloud even more than it already is. Um, like how nice would it be to have a completely secure Google Drive, um, where you can store your passwords and information. Um, but will it take over cloud computing? I think quantum cloud computing, perhaps, maybe a while into the future. But I am optimistic. Your second question was about burden sharing and NATO um dedicating funds to certain things. I think definitely, like as I mentioned, that there is an ethical dilemma, like where the government has to consider opportunity costs, like whether we should give money to poor people or like invest in healthcare and education and welfare or quantum computing. And I think that as a result of quantum computing, since it's able to simulate probabilities so well, I think it would be really useful to combine maybe quantum computing and machine learning, like I said, to help us kind of find an answer to those problems, and an answer to where to dedicate funds. Um, so yeah, I hope that answered your
Thank,
question.
thank you very much. And my skepticism comes from 21 years ago when I was interning. I thought it was very neat that Google is able to scan all of my documents so that I will be able to find it very easily. And after a few months, I realized that there were some anomalies. So thank you very much. Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thank you. Yes, there's another question here from Winnie, if you want to elaborate further, but I'll read it real quick. Keep shining your light and share your knowledge. What is a good place to start to understand quantum entanglement? Do you have a specific book or podcast? Would you consider hosting a webinar?
That is really, thank you so much. That's very flattering. A good place to start quantum entanglement. Do I recommend I think YouTube videos were what actually helped me understand a lot. I actually when you mentioned like will you consider hosting a webinar, I did host one about quantum entanglement specifically. If you want, you can message me on Discord or you can add me on LinkedIn. It should be the same as my name on the Zoom. I'll send you the link to that. Um, a specific book or podcast, nothing really comes to mind because I have uh my base concepts have started from YouTube. So yeah. Uh Someone said, I feared quantum is not for me. Now I know at these temperatures it's far too cold for me.
I have a question.
Yes.
So I really like, as a futurist, your one of your latest slide about ethical questions or what could go wrong, no? For you, what is like your worst nightmare, or what do you fear the most about the future of quantum?
I think it would be similar to a lot of people in saying that AI already is so scary. Quantum AI would be actually really terrifying. That would probably be my biggest fear. That computers not only are able to make decisions by themselves, but they're able to know what the best decision is in terms of their interests. So it is very scary. Also just the fact that it is we're able now to have computers that harness so much power um in order to um you know cause chaos amongst classical systems. I think that's also really scary, but I hope new protocols will be able to fix that.
Thank you
You
to
seem
bring the
very
slides
optimistic.
after. Yeah.
I was just curious, building off of that, because you do seem very optimistic. How do you weigh the bads and the goods, I suppose?
Good question. I am going to say I think it's necessary to rely on the government in this case to introduce new laws and legislations to put into place in order to mitigate these very scary issues. Um, but how do I weigh the pros and cons? I think that in general, quantum computing, as destructive as it might be for the environment, is able to reverse those um, issues that have been caused. So, like, as I said, the government using them to simulate probabilities to know where to put their money, quantum genome sequencing, as I mentioned earlier, to help people prevent a lot of scary diseases that are likely to happen. Um, there's a question here. Sadia, what is your
Yeah.
next area to focus on? Um, in terms of like career-wise or topic-wise, y- um,
Go anywhere with that one, yeah.
yeah, true. Next area to focus on. Well, this is my last year of high school, so I'm going off to uni next year. That will be my next area to focus on. Enough fun and games.
Yeah. But out of the broad range of applications that you have sketched out, what is it that you would like to take further?
That's a really good question, a really complicated one as well. There there's a lot going on. And honestly, everything seems so interesting that I cannot decide. But at the minute, I think um definitely quantum error correction seems very nice to delve into. Also, I've got a while to specialize, so I'll wait until later to decide.
Anyway, very good luck with you. And Scott, we need to kidnap her so she works for us and not the
I,
others.
yeah, indeed. But there's no way she'll work for evil people, I think. She's way too bright and sunny, so I think we have that going for us at least.
Also, Mr. Berlage, I think that's how I pronounce your last name. You're from Hamburg. There's so much that has come of quantum computing or quantum physics from Germany specifically. I think that's really interesting.
Yeah,
Max Planck, for example.
the Germans are quite good in technology and stuff like that. We are not the best in taking it to the market. So that's unfortunately true. And I have to admit, I've got no finger in that. So
Mhm.
Well, there is a question from Jed here about what do you think about the situation of funding quantum computing, and in terms of commercial sales, would it be only for the riches? So again, the inequality is perpetuated.
I think in the near future, while these technologies come out, it unfortunately will be exclusive to those who are able to afford it, which is a real shame. Until we're able to implement these technologies in a more efficient way, so we don't have to hand make these computers and we can make them in a factory, I think that is when it will be available to more people than it would be, say, in the next 5 to 10 years, which is a shame because this technology is amazing and I wish it was available to more people.
There's a wonderful comment here from Lulu Lee, encouraging words for someone who does not understand quantum leap computing physics, uh, which kind of inspires in me an interesting question, because you had talked about how governments might regulate this. And as an American living in Asia, I was very embarrassed by these congressional hearings that took place not very long ago with some of the big tech giants. And so, as someone I guess you could consider yourself self-taught in quantum computing. How can we, as people, more than maybe just futurists, become knowledge on certain things so that we know how to be ready for what's coming next, and maybe even we can properly regulate or create laws around this sort of stuff?
Um, that's an interesting question. I think that everyone is obviously everyone with an access to technology is able to educate themselves, which I think is brilliant. But the issue is that it's not a very commonly talked about thing. So you won't just find it on social media, you won't find it in the newspaper, you won't find it in movies that often. I guess Oppenheimer brushed on it a little bit, but um, it will definitely have to be governments taking control and saying that this is something that is going to be there and this is something we need to be prepared for and this is something we need to be educated on. Um, so yeah, in terms of educating yourself, I think yeah, there's this brilliant YouTube channel. The lady's name is Sabine Hossenfelder. I don't know if you might have heard of her, but she does a lot of sciencey, physicsy talk, and she does talk a lot about quantum computing and its issues and the future with it. So I think, um, yeah, that's a great way to educate yourself.
Fantastic, thank you. If there's any other questions out there, there's another comment from Judd. What an amazing young scientist, excellent presentation, and hope you host more webinars on this fascinating topic to share your knowledge. So,
Thank you.
I was wondering how have you come into, so it's incredible that you've come into quantum computing, as someone of your age bracket may not be what one would think would be someone into quantum computing. How did you also get into futures, which is another one that always kind of boggles my mind, how people happen into the space of futures? If you can kind of tell us that story a bit too.
I think futures in general is something that everyone should be interested in. I mean, especially younger people, this is our future as well. So I think it's important for everyone, not just me, to consider that this is stuff that will happen and we need to stay ready for it. Like I said earlier, the way I got into futures was just being a kid, I guess, like realizing that, stuff is happening, stuff will happen, I need to be ready for it. So yeah, young people are the future. Yeah.
Excellent. Very good.
I
Very
don't know
good.
if you said already, Sadia, but what are you going to be studying when you end high school
Uh,
specifically?
I'm in high school right now, so I'm doing my
After?
A levels. After high school,
Yeah.
I am applying, I'm going to be doing hopefully a bachelor's in physics first, which is a shame because there's a lot when you look at the field of physics. There is materials like how much a metal can stretch. There is um how fast something can go in a circle, to space, to quantum stuff. So it's all over the place. You have to know how to program and like loads of maths. So it's very broad, unfortunately. But for my postgrad, I will definitely be looking into a quantum computing degree.
Fantastic. Yeah, that sounds like a really good pathway because physics in general just will equip you, I think, with enough, just a really good base so that you can take that to wherever else you want to go. And while you're at university, you'll be able to get other core subjects in as well. So that sounds like a fantastic plan. So we definitely wish you all the best.
Thank you.
So yeah,
As much
definitely.
as it's nice that we have a new field where people can kind of make a name for themselves and there's so much research that people can do, I hate that it is so small and new and niche because not many people know much about it and universities don't have courses for it. It's still blooming, it's still developing, so it's a shame, but
You're referencing quantum computing.
yes, and
Okay,
quantum physics in
excellent.
general.
It's
Yeah.
the same story for futures. I was curious which one you were talking about, but it's definitely something we all run into. So
With
uh
futures as well, I think it's a shame that it's not a subject that's taught at school. I was talking to someone about this earlier, but we have history as a subject and how that can be used to predict certain circumstances in the future, but we don't have a subject called futures, which I think would be pretty interesting, where you have statistics, probabilities, um, etc.
uh Lord, did you have a question?
Yes, yes. Well, I wanted to say that Teach the Future is all about to include future as a topic in the schools. This is what we are trying to do, and it's not easy. But I would like to invite you formally to like to share more about your knowledge, or we will make sure that everything that you share on your LinkedIn we can amplify in our networks, because I think when you are talking, this is motivating for other youth, for other young people. And it's not the same when an adult talk about quantum than when a youth is talking about it. So I would love to, yes, help you and you help other youth to be more excited about quantum in
I
general.
would gladly accept. Thank you so much, not just to you, but to the whole of Teach the Future. Um, and I remember meeting Lisa at Dubai Future Forum and her inviting me to these things. And I could not be more grateful for this opportunity. And I love that you guys are projecting youth voices because it is very important.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
And there are lots of and I'm not speaking to any particular because but there are lots of university level stuff going on with futures as well. So the more you kind of get to know this group and speak more with this community, the more you'll find out there's lots of really interesting opportunities. And so it'd be very nice to have you with us and be able to amplify your work and work together to build better futures, as it were. So yeah, thank you very much.
Thank you.
I guess let's leave on maybe an interesting, crazy futures question. What comes after quantum computing? You know, that seems like it's sort of a one-step solution to many of our problems. Is there something further beyond that? Is your job going to even be available by the time you graduate, or will quantum computing have already advanced according to Moore's law?
Wow. Okay. I didn't see that one coming. Um,
Sorry.
um, yeah, honestly, it would be hard to imagine something like that, but it is definitely possible. Like we came from using a Pascaline as one of the first computers to now supercomputers that can play chess really well and quantum computers that are able to um, encrypt things and like calculate super fast probability. So I would say yes, probably there would be something that would be more advanced than quantum computing. I just struggle to imagine what it would be like or look like. Oh, that's a weird question.
Well, now
Um,
that I have it in your head, hopefully you'll be one of the pioneers for what comes next. So
hopefully.
that sounds very good. Well, thank you again. I think with that, if unless there are any other questions or comments from anyone else, I think we can hand it off to Lords for the next hour. And then thank you all for being here. This has been very wonderful. And happy dinner time in Bangkok. And then good morning to other people around the world, and good night. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Sadia. Please, Sadia, share your LinkedIn link if you wish in the chat. I would
I
love
will
to.
do, yes.
Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you. It's my smile. It's on my face all the time. I didn't expect that this session, or like the previous one with St. Peter's, is so inspiring.